Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uptech America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. My name is Bob, and I'm the lead senior consultant for Uptech America. And with me today, I have Victor, who is also a senior consultant for Uptech America. And today we are covering General Ledger Lesson 6. Victor, can you please walk us through?
Thanks, Bob, for the introduction. As I said, my name is Victor, and this is our 6th lesson in Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. So let's start with a quick recap of where we left off from last time. We looked at code or account combinations. We discussed what those are in the Oracle world. We also looked at the combinations table and its purpose. We looked at dynamic insertion feature and how it enables consultants to meet the business needs for clients. And today we are going to look at cross-validation, which is a continuation from, which builds on all these concepts that we have looked at in our previous lesson. So let's get right to it. We also did a primer on cross-validation rules and what they are. So just as a small reminder, we said that cross-validation rules act as a filter around the combination table. And why do they do this? We said that inside the combination table are where all the valid combinations are stored. So all the combinations that exist in the combinations table and those combinations are enabled, they are the ones which are allowed to be used by the end user in entering journals or doing account inquiries and so on. So invalid combinations are rejected by the cross-validation rules. So they are not allowed to be used by the end user. The other thing we said about cross-validation rules is that they do not affect combinations that are already inside the combinations table. So if you have combinations in your table that are invalid according to your business rules or business logic, cross-validation rules will not help you take care of that, and you have to manually disable these combinations so that they cannot be used by the end user. The final thing that we said about cross-validation rules is that they are entered as inclusion and exclusion ranges or domains, and that's one thing that we are going to look at today to make this concept much clearer. So as pertains to these cross-validation rules, this is the hierarchy that you are going to see when you're implementing cross-validation rules. So the highest level is the structure, then you have the rule itself, and then the inclusion and exclusion ranges. So this actually is what you see at the window where you enter the cross-validation rules themselves. So let me explain this hierarchy a bit. So at the structure level, you have to enable the use of cross-validation rules. So why is it done this at the structure level? Because these combinations are determined by our chart of account structure. When I say structure, I mean a chart of account structure, because the combinations that you are able to make are determined by your chart of account structure and the segments that are contained in this structure. So you have to enable cross-validation rules at the structure level in order to use them. So once you have enabled the cross-validation rules for your particular chart of account structure, then you can go and define the rules. So this level is basically where you define what the rule is governing. So you can say maybe company 1 is not allowed to use a certain natural account. Maybe it's not allowed to use the land asset a natural account, or company 1 is not allowed to use a combination that contains department 1 or division 100 and so have you. So this is where you actually define what the rule is preventing. Let me put it that way. And then the last level of the hierarchy is where you enter the ranges that this rule uh, comprises, if I put it that way. So here is where you enter the actual combination ranges which are being accepted or rejected as per your cross-validation rules. And we are going to look at this in Oracle just so that it can be clear. Actually, let's do that right now. So let's go to Oracle. I'm going to sign in. So let's first enable cross-validation rules for our chart of account structure. And to do that, the navigation is going to be setup, financials, flex field, key, and segments. This is how we are able to view our chart of account structure. So you should be familiar with this window by now. And in here, we look for our Mascani group COA. There it is. So in order to enable cross-validation, what do? We come right here. When it looks like I had done it already. But anyway, to do this, first you have to unfreeze your flex field definition. And then if you have not enabled cross-validation, you check this box and then freeze your flex field again. And cross-validation rules will be enabled for your chart of account structure, okay? So let's close that. Looks like we didn't have anything else to do on that page. So in order to enter the actual rules so that we can see this hierarchy that we are talking about, we are going to go to the rules window. And the navigation for that will be setup, financials, flex field, key, and then go down here to rules. So setup, financials, flex fields, key, then rules. So this is where you can that hierarchy that I have just explained can be easily discernible. So at the first level, you have to select the structure for which you want to define the rules. And then at the second level is where you define the actual rules, like what they are. Maybe company 1 is not allowed to use a certain natural account, or company 2 is not allowed to use certain department. And then you also have to enter a few things down here. So here you will describe what error message the user will see once they try to enter, like an invalid combination. And then at the third level, of the last level of the hierarchy, is where you define your ranges. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this window so that you can understand that hierarchy that I was talking about. But we are going to enter our rules later. So let's go back to our slides. So that's the hierarchy. Now let's look at examples of cross-validation rules so that we can understand what we mean when we say that they are entered as inclusion and exclusion ranges. So these are examples that we are going to use for our actual ledger. And I have, I think, 4 examples that hopefully are going to help us understand this concept of cross-validation rules. So as we said, cross-validation rules, they allow the valid combinations to enter into the combinations table, and they prevent the valid combinations from entering the combinations table, meaning the valid combinations can be used by end users and the invalid ones will not be used. So let's, as an example, let's say we don't want our company one to use the natural account companies in the 1300 ranges. As we are going to see once we start entering, this 1300 range of natural accounts I have, I believe is receivables. Yeah, it's receivables that can only be used by company two. So we don't want any user entering journals to use these accounts with company one, because it does not make business sense for our enterprise. So if we don't want company one to use this 1300 account, how are we going to define, how are we going to specify those rules? So first, what we do is we enter this inclusion range. And what does this inclusion range look like? We include all the possible combinations that we can make in our chart of account structures. So every possible combination is defined within this range. So from 00 from 0 for the company to 999, from 00 for the natural account to 999, and the same for all the segments. So any possible combination that you can think of is included in this range. So that's what we usually do as the first step. We define the inclusion range, and it's usually all the accounts that are possible. And then now we go to the exclusion range. What does the exclusion range define? The exclusion range defines those range of accounts, of account combinations that are invalid, that we don't want to enter the combination table. So how you can look at it is this range of accounts, which is all the range of accounts, minus this range of accounts, which is the ones we don't want to enter, equals the valid accounts that we want users to be able to use. So this is all the accounts that are possible, and this is the range that defines all the accounts that we don't want to be used. So what remains is the one that we want, are the range of account combinations that we want users to be able to use. So let's take a closer look at this exclusion range. We have said that this business rule is supposed to prevent company one from using this 1300 account. So how do we specify our range? We want it only to affect company one combinations. So our company range will be 01 to 01. Okay, we don't want any other combinations involving 1300 to affect any other company. So this should have been in green also, because I wanted to highlight the, the companies that are, the segments that are affected. So this is 01 to 01. So that's the first segment. Let's move on to the second segment, which is a natural account. We don't want a company one to use any 1300 accounts. So that will be from 1300 to 1399, because before 1300 is 1299, and after 1399 is 1400, and we want those accounts to be valid. So the ones we want to exclude are from 1300 to 1399. So that's our range for the natural account segment. Let's move on to the other segments. Now we don't want company one to use the 1300 accounts in any combination. In any combination, okay? So the ranges for all the other segments should cover every possible value, because we don't want company one to use these 1300 accounts that we have already defined here in any combination. All right. So for all the other segments, it's going to be 00 to the last possible value, which is 999 or 99, depending on the segment. So I hope that is clear. So this exclusion range defines the range of accounts that we don't want to be used. These are the ones that are going to be invalid. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next example. The second cross-validation rule that we are going to enter is to prevent company one from using the natural account ranges in the 4100s. So the format is pretty similar from the first example. So what did we say? The first step is to include everything, include every possible combination, which is the range from 00 to 999 for every segment. So this is every possible combination in our chart of accounts. Okay. Then the next step is to define the ones that we don't want to be used. So we don't want this range of accounts to be used by users. And what remains are the valid accounts. So what's the exclusion range? It only covers company one, so 01 to 01. What is the range of natural accounts that we don't want to be used? It starts from 4100 to 4199. So that's the range of natural accounts that is covered. We don't want company one to use 4100s for any combination at all. So all the other segments, because there's nothing specifying any range of segments for the rule, we cover all the other possible values for the other segments. So it's going to be from 0 to 9 for all the other segments. So company one we will not be able to enter any combination using company one and the range of accounts from 4100 to 4199. Okay, so that's the second example. The third example is for company two, but the format is also pretty similar. So we don't want company two to use these revenue accounts from 4001 to 4099. So how are we going to define these two lines, inclusion and exclusion range? First, we include every possible combination, and then we define the ranges that we don't want to be used for. So for this one, it's company two. So our range for the company is 02 to 02, because we only want to affect company two. And then the range of natural accounts is from 4001 to 4099. So for this particular rule, company two can use 4000, but it can't use anything starting from 4001 going up to 4099. So you will see that this range starts from 4001 to 4099. So company two cannot use, you cannot enter any combination that has company two and this range of accounts from 4001 to 4099. Okay, so let's see our next example. So the next example says we should prevent company one and company two from using the program values. Now, if you remember correctly, in our chart of accounts, maybe let me go and show you. Let's close this window. Let's go to, actually, let's go to values. Mascani program. So we have this segment in our chart of accounts, the program. program segment, which has the Mascani group program value set. And these are the values in that value set. And remember, we said that for the two companies we have, we don't want them to use any of this program values. And I actually think I put this in wrong. Anyway, this was supposed to be 100, 101, then 102, but the concept remains the same. So we don't want the two companies, Mascani Developers and Mascani Property, to use any of these values, the graduate, bachelor's, and diploma, and that's why we had this default value. Okay. So going back to our slide.
And can you clarify why we don't want that to be used, just for the anyone watching this to understand a little bit more?
Okay, so the reason why we don't want those particular values to be used is because we are going to use the same chart of account structure to create another company. We are going to have another company that is going to be a school, and it's going to be able to use these values, but because those values make sense for that particular company. But we don't want this the companies that we have right now, the property management and developers, to use these values because it doesn't make sense for them.
Thank you.
So going back to our slides, so we don't want company 1 and company 2 to use any program values apart from the default. All right. So I could have written this. All right. Let's take a. There's a reason why I did 2 exclusion lines, but let's first go step by step, and I'm going to explain. So what do we do? Remember, here we are defining a rule that affects both company 1 and company 2. So what's the inclusion range? We include everything as for all the other examples that we have done. So these are all the possible combinations. So what does this exclusion range, the first exclusion range, define? It prevents company 1, so 01 to 01, from using any account combination that has a value in the program segment. Okay, so company 1 can use the default value 001, but it cannot use any other value apart from that. And this is why I said there's a bit of confusion, because in our actual value set, we have defined it as 001, 002, and 003. But when I was making the slide, I put it as 100. So don't let that confuse you. We can just look at this as 001 to 999, and this is supposed to be in green also. So this exclusion range is for company 1 alone, and then this second exclusion range is for company 2. So also for company 2, we don't want it to use any value in that program segment apart from the default, which is 00. So anything else apart from that, so this we will read as 001 to the last value 999 should not be used by any of these two companies. Now, so why did I do this in 2 exclusion ranges? So the reason why I did this is because I wanted to show that sometimes the exclusion ranges do not fall in one neat range, you see, so like going from 01 to 02. So from example, assuming that we had that company that I am talking about, the school, in our chart of accounts, we already had it at the moment. So we had company 01, and then we had Mascani School as company 02, and then we had Mascani Property Manager as company 03. So company 01 and company 03, we don't want them to use these program values. But company 02, it can use these program values because it is the Maskani school, and so those program values, they make sense for it. So how would we define that exclusion range? So if we did it as one line, company 01 to company 03, that would be a wrong way to do it. Why? Because company 02 also falls in that range. So if you did it as one line, so company 01 through company 03, you would exclude company 02 from using program values, and we know that company 02 can be used. So what do? You do two exclusion ranges. You do one for company 01, as we did here, and then another one for company 03, as we did here, but here we did company 02. So when you don't have the ranges that you want to exclude in one neat, in one neat and continuous range, you can use this. Oracle allows you to enter more than one exclusion range, so that, so that you can be able to define different ranges for your cross-validation rules. And this applies for any other segment that you may want to define a cross-validation rules for. So I hope that's clear, and don't worry about the mistakes here. We are going to make that correction when we're doing it in our slides. Okay. So we have already said that in order to use cross-validation rules, we have to first enable cross-validation for your chart of account structures, and we saw that we have already done that. And then we go and enter the cross-validation rules. So that is what we are going to do. Let me go back to the very first example, and this is the one that we are going to start with for practical session today. Now I want first to show you our account value set, so that you can see how we are trying to, the accounts that we are trying to prevent from being used. Let's go to the natural account value set. So these are the accounts that I added. So we have property sales receivables, mortgage receivables, we have management fees receivables, parking fees receivables. I added some sales under the sales and revenue. I added some land sales and some home sales, and we have commercial sales. And then we have under the 4100 range, we have management fees, we have application fees, parking fees. So let me explain. So this range, the 1201 range to 1299, we can say it is for company 1. It's for Maskani developers, because they're the ones who are involved in the business of building and selling properties. So when maybe company 1 builds a property and it is finished and it is sold, they use this account to indicate that sale. And then maybe they also have a mortgage program where they do mortgages for people who want to buy those properties. That's also for company 1. And then the 1300 range of accounts is for company 2, because they're involved in the management of property business. So they usually receive management fees from their clients, and maybe so these management fees receivables can only be used by company 2. We don't want company 1 to use that. So technically, also company 2 should not be able to use these accounts, but we only we're only going to do a few examples just to demonstrate how cross-validation rules are supposed to work. So we don't want company one using the 1300, starting from 1300 going to 1399. So if we add any receivables that are for company two only, the property management, we should add them in this range, 1300 going to 1399. So the next one might be 1302, then 1303, in that fashion. Let's go also to the revenues accounts that I added, the natural accounts. So starting from 4001 going to 4099, I want them to be used by company one because they reflect the kind of business that company one is involved in. So company one can own land, and so it can be able to sell that land because they do, construction and development. So they need land for that kind of business. And then revenues from selling houses that they construct, houses or apartments, and then revenues from selling commercial kind of properties, like we said, they construct also industrial plants and retail facilities, maybe like malls or shops or supermarkets, something like that. So those are for company one. We don't want company two to be using these accounts. And then from 4100 to 4199 are the revenues for company two. So they are involved in management of properties on behalf of clients. So they collect management fees from clients. They also look for tenants for those clients, maybe with apartments or single family homes. So they collect application fees from tenants who want to rent those buildings. And then maybe they have parkings in those apartments. So they also collect parking fees from tenants. So these are the streams of revenues for company two. So we don't want company one using these accounts. So I just added these accounts, to make our chart of accounts richer, and also it will enable us to implement our cross-validation rules. Okay. So now that you have understood that, let's go to the rules window. Remember the navigation is setup, financials, flex fields, key, then rules. So remember our hierarchy. First we specify the structure, and before we do that we have to specify what application it is for. So general ledger, maybe it's easier to find. Let me see. Scanning. No. All right. So let's do general. Close this. So that is our chart of account structure, Mascani group, chart of account structure in the accounting flex field. So now that we have identified that, let's go to the second level. And here, what do we say we do? We put in the name of the rule. So which rule are we trying to use? Let's go back to our slide. To prevent company one from using 1300 account. Okay. So we can put the name as company one and 1300. Let's use caps. Then in the description, you can say prevent or company 001 cannot use accounts 1300 to 1399. All right. So once you've given the name of the rule, you also have to enter. You have to enter the error message that the user will see once they try to put in a combination that is invalid. So you can probably just copy this and use it as the error message also. I think it makes sense. And what is this error segment? So once a user tries to use any invalid combination, this error segment will determine which segment Oracle will ask the user to change. So Oracle can ask the user to change to company 2, which will be allowed to use this range of values 1300 to 1399, or Oracle can ask them to change the natural account segment and use an account that is valid for company 01. So let's just use the account segment, and you can see that it's not a mandatory field, but let's just put that in. You can choose the period for which you want this cross validation rule to be effective. That's also not mandatory, so we're going to skip that. Okay. So here is where we enter the rules. This is the third level of the hierarchy. So first you want to select the inclusion range. Once you click here, this will pop up. So what do we want to put in here? Let's go back to our slides. Inclusion range is everything, right? So 00 to 999. So our inclusion range has included everything. This next line should be our exclusion range, the invalid accounts. So come and select this. What do we want to do? We want to prevent company 1 from using this range of accounts. So our range for the company should be 01 to 01, correct? Which are the accounts that we want to prevent? 1300 to 1399. What about for the other departments? We want to prevent, for the other segments, we want to prevent any kind of combination that includes these two for any value for all the other segments. So this will remain as in the inclusion range. So it's going to be 00 to 99. So that's good. We can save our work. Let's try out this first cross-validation rule and see whether it works. You might need to log in and log out, or maybe switch responsibility. By the way, you can switch responsibility from here. So file, switch responsibility. Just pick this, okay. And then let's go back to our responsibility. See whether those, and let's try to enter a journal. So cross validation test, cross validation test. So line 10. Let's try to enter company 1. We prevented anything from 1300 to 13999. So let's pick this parking fees receivables, okay? We can do a default for all the others. Oh no, let's do, this one doesn't have a default, so let's do industrial plants. 00. Our cross validation rule is working because we get an error. We say which is as we defined it in the rules, company 01 cannot use account 1300 to 13999. So what happens when you click OK? Oracle throws us back to the account segment and we can change this account segment just because we said that this is the error segment. You can change any segment you want, but that's just where Oracle throws you back to, okay? So let's say okay. Okay, cancel. We can delete this. So our first cross-validation rule worked perfectly. So let's go to the next ones and enter them. So we don't want company 1 to use the 4100s. That's our second cross-validation rule. So setup, financials, flex fields, key, rules. General ledger, accounting, let me see whether this will pull up this thing. Yeah. So that's our this is our set of this is our cross validation rules window for our chart of accounts. Now let me take you back to the slides, show you something. Remember what we said, there are 3 levels of hierarchy. So structure, rules, and then the ranges. So one structure can have multiple rules, right? And now each rule is defined by its own ranges. So you can see that hierarchy there. If we want to add another rule, what do? We come to this second line here under the cross validation rules header under the second hierarchy. So assuming this is the first rule, this would be that, And then we're going to enter the second rule. You can add a third rule, a fourth rule, as many as are required to make your 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 business function properly. So let's go and enter a second rule, which is company one cannot use 4100. Company 001 cannot use accounts 4100 to 4199. Error message, we can copy that and put that there. Let's change the error segment so that I can just show you what I meant by how this thing affects the user. And then we come and define the inclusion and exclusion ranges. So let's do include. As always, the inclusion range, all the possible combinations. So 00 to 999. Okay. What do we want to exclude? Company 01 only. What are the ranges of accounts that we want to exclude? 4100 to 4199. So what's 4100? Management fees. Company one is not in the business of management. All right. So okay, up to 4199, because the 4100s are going to be used for company two. Now 4199 does not exist in the natural accounts that we have here, but we know that anytime we want to add a sales or revenue account that is only for company two, management fees, application fees, parking fees, what is something else? Maybe they have a fee for people who want to keep pets in their apartments. That's also for company two. It's going to go in this range of 4100. Maybe it's going to be 4103. So when we put 4199, we are covering even future accounts that we may add to that range that are going to fall within this range. So everything else is going to be default. Oh, sorry, should be 99. Okay, so that's our exclusion range. So let's save our work. Let's enter all our rules and then we'll go and test them all together. So what was the second rule? Our third rule, I mean. Our third rule was prevent company 2 from using 4000 to 4099. So company 002, how are we going to put this? Anyway, let's just do 4000, though that's not accurate. But in the description, we will say company 02 cannot use accounts 4001 to 4099. Let's use this for the error message as well. error segment, count, not mandatory, but what do we include? Do we include everything? 002999. What do we exclude? This time it's company 2, account 4,000, but we don't want to include 4,000 in that range because we want this to remain as the generic sales and revenue account. So we want to exclude starting from 4,001 up to 1499. So that, click OK there, to 4,099, and everything else we will cover the whole range of values. So that will be 00 to 99, 99. So that rule should be complete. Let's save that and let's enter our fourth one, which should be company 001, 02, 02 cannot use the program. There's a limited number of characters that you can enter in this field, so bear with me if this doesn't make sense. But in the description, you can say company 01 and 02 cannot use the program segments, program values. Let's put that in there. Error segment, let's put it as program. It's just random. All right. Let's include everything as usual. So that's our inclusion range. Now here we can do one line. We can do this 001 to 002. Why? Because they follow each other. They fall into one range, and then all we have to do is specify under the program segment what values that we don't want them to use. Or the other thing is we can do one exclusion line for company 1, and we can do one exclusion line for company 2. So let's keep it this way. Let's do one exclusion line. But remember, if we had 3 companies and we wanted to do this for company 1 and company 3, but leave out company 2 to remain valid, we would have to do 2 exclusion ranges. So you can't do 01 to 03 here if company 02 you don't want it to be excluded, because now this will exclude everything between company 01 and company 02, which is 01, 02, and 03. So if you had 01, 02, and 03, and the only companies affected are 01 and 03, you have to do 2 exclusion lines. So, okay, let me change this back to 02. Now these segments are not being affected, so we want to include everything. That's not. The segment that we want to specify the rule for is the program segment, and we want to affect all the range of values in the other segments. So 99. So for the program, these are the values that we have there. We want these two companies to be able to use the default value, but we don't want it to use anything else, right? So our first value should be 01 up to any other possible value that we may add in this segment, which is 999. Then this will be 00 to 999 and 00 to 999. Okay, so that's our fourth and final rule that we have defined. Let's save our work. We can close this, and let's go and try to enter journals for the last three rules that we have entered to test. So let's go to enter journals. So let's test the second rule, which is company. Okay, so company 01 cannot use 4100s. So we want to enter company 01. Let's pick an account that is in the 4100 range. Let's do management fees, division to 100. Let's pick a department just to show you that this works for any, any value for the other segments too. So let's do HR and payroll. Program, let's do default. Let's do default. Oh wow, that should not work. All right, let me see what I did here. Okay. This is a good example. So technically, we should not be able to enter this combination because we defined a rule that says company 01 should not use the 4100 range of accounts. So first, let's try changing responsibility so that those changes can take place. That's what we did not do this time. So let's cancel this. Remember last time we changed responsibilities, so switch responsibility. Let's go back again, so let's see whether those changes have taken effect. If not, there's something else we can check, but let's try this first. So cross validation test. Enter the same thing. So we had 001, 004100, division 100. We did department 20 and default for everything. Okay, what is the other thing that might be allowing us to enter this combination, although our cross validation rules say that we should not? Let's close this. And let's go to setup, accounts, combinations. Let's go to setup. Trying to see whether we have this combination here. Because remember we said that if anything is in the combinations table, then the cross-validation rules will not affect us. But it looks like this combination is not here. All right, so let's take a look at our combination rules and see cross-validation rules and see whether we entered them correctly. Okay, so this is the rule that we entered, and it was not working in our journal entry because it was still allowing companies in the 4100s with not accounts in the 4100s to work with company 01, and we were trying to figure out what the problem is. And if you are keen, you can see what the problem is. What we did is when we were defining the rules, we did include for both lines. So this should be an exclusion range. Okay. So that's the problem. And now after we make this change, we should be able to use this rule. So all right. So those are our 4 rules. Let's go back to journal entry page and try out this second rule. So let's do line 10. Let's pick company account, 4101. I believe we have 1 year application fees. Division 100. Let's pick a department, 30. The default program, future. Okay. All right. Now this one I know we also didn't log out and log in this time. So let's see whether that's going to make a change. We are getting many problems with this time around. But it's good. It's a good learning experience. It's not always straightforward. So first, let's switch responsibilities. Try and enter another journal. Okay, so cross validation. And what had we entered? We had entered 001 with 0041 4101 100. We had picked a department 30 and default. So that worked. So company 01 cannot use this range of accounts. So we had to switch responsibility so that the changes that we made in the cross-validation rules could take effect. So okay, so let's cancel that. Let's try another entry that for a rule that we have enabled. So company 2 cannot use 4000 to 4099, 4001 to 4099. Let's try that. We're going to try it on the same journal. So company 2 cannot use 4001 going to 4099. So let's pick 4002. Okay. Any division 101. Any department. Let's do department 10. Let's do default for all these others. Okay. Company 2 cannot. Oh, there's a typo in the error message, but nothing wrong with that. Company 2 cannot use this account, so that cross-validation rule is working. Okay, so let's cancel that. What was the next cross-validation rule we had? So both companies cannot use anything from the program values. Okay. Now remember, for all the other entries that we've been doing, we've been entering. So let's do company 1 before I finish my explanation. Let's try let's try cash account, division, any department, 200 default. For all the other entries that we were doing, we were picking the default value, because in our cross-validation rules we did not include this value in the exclusion range. So if we pick anything other, let's see what's going to happen. So let's do 001. Let's do default. Let's do default. Company 001 and 002 cannot use program values. That's because we picked a value in this. Okay. So let's change this to 02, and let's change this to bachelors 002. Let's click OK. We still get the same error message. Okay. But if we change this to the default, we don't get the error message, because this is a valid combination. Okay. So you can try multiple various combinations and see how your cross-validation rules affect them. Maybe if the chart of account structure that you've set up for yourself is not the same as mine for my scanning group, you can try various types of cross-validation rules and see how they will affect your end user. But using the ones that we have done right now, that is how the cross-validation rules work, and they have worked as we expected them to work. Okay, so as a conclusion, remember, cross-validation rules, they work in tandem. They can work in tandem or together with dynamic insertion feature. So as a revision, we remember dynamic insertion, when it's on, any rule, any combination can go into the combination table, right? And then remember, we said we can turn off dynamic insertion, and in that case, we'll have to manually enter all the valid combinations in the combination table. But what if the combinations that we have to enter are very many, which makes managing these values in the combination table a lot of work? That's when cross-validation rules come in. So with cross-validation rules, you can have your cake and eat it. You can have dynamic insertion on, and you still are able to prevent the invalid combinations from being used. So in our case right now, we have dynamic insertion on, which means any combinations that are valid as per our cross-validation rules, they will be allowed to enter in the combinations table. But if you try to enter any combination that's invalid, it will not go into the combinations table even though dynamic insertion is on. Why? Because we have defined cross-validation rules that prevent those invalid combinations from entering the combinations table and being used by the end user. So what's the conclusion? If your client, because remember you're doing all this to enable a client to meet their business needs using Oracle. If your client doesn't have any business rules, if their chart of accounts is straightforward and you don't have to prevent certain combinations and all that, you can have a dynamic insertion on, and that's it. Any combination that the end user wants to use, they can use it. If your client has business rules that need to be met, but it is easy to manage the valid and invalid combinations, maybe they don't have that many possible combinations with the set of accounts, and you can just turn off dynamic insertion, and then the end user will have somebody who manages the combinations manually by inputting the valid combinations in the combinations table, and anything else that's not in there will not be used. But if there are too many combinations to be managed manually, then you define cross-validation rules which prevent invalid combinations from being used. So this page is a summary basically of what I have just said. Perhaps it would have been easier to look at it in terms of business needs of the client, but I mean I have explained that. But this is how functionality is affected when you have dynamic insertion on with no cross-validation rules. So this is when the end user has no business rules to be met. So combinations are created automatically, and any combination goes. When you have dynamic insertion off with no cross-validation rules, that means that the end user wants to enter the valid combinations manually in the combinations table, and those that are invalid will not be entered there. And in this case, it means maybe the end user doesn't have very many combinations to manage, and they can do it manually. But in this last case, which is what we've just done, we have dynamic insertion on and we have cross-validation rules. Why? Because this client might have has business rules that they need to be met, but it is impossible to do it manually because the combinations to be managed are so many. So we have these features of Oracle that enable us to meet those business needs in a simple way. All right, so that's the end of our lesson today and the topics that we wanted to cover, from combinations table, combinations, dynamic insertion, and cross-validation rules. So unless, Bob, you have something else to add, I think that's a good place to end our lesson today.
I think we are good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.